sky. This day, too, was a calm day. The fall was tremendous. The leaves were seen to fall 15 minutes, but, judging from the quantity on the ground, it is the writer's opinion that they had already been falling half an hour. I think that the geyser of corpses that sprang from Riobamba toward the sky must have been an interesting sight. If I were a painter, I'd like that subject. But this cataract of dried leaves, too, is a study in the rhythms of the dead. In this datum, the point most agreeable to us is the very point that the writer in La Nature emphasizes: windlessness. He says that the surface of the Loire was absolutely smooth. The river was strewn with leaves as far as he could see. L'Astronomie, 1894 194. That, upon the 7th of April, 1894, dried leaves fell at Clairvaux and Outre-Aube, France. The fall is described as prodigious. Half an hour. Then, upon the 11th, a fall of dried leaves occurred at Pontcarré. It is in this recurrence that we found some of our opposition to the conventional explanation. The editor, Flammarion, explains. He says that the leaves had been caught up in a cyclone which had expended its force, that the heavier leaves had fallen first. We think that that was all right for 1894, and that it was quite good enough for 1894. But, in these more exacting days, we want to know how wind power insufficient to hold some leaves in the air could sustain others 4 days. The factors in this expression are unseasonableness, not for dried leaves, but for prodigious numbers of dried leaves, direct fall, windlessness, month of April, and localization in France. The factor of localization is interesting. Not a note have I upon fall of leaves from the sky, except these notes. Were the conventional explanation, or old correlate, acceptable, it would seem that similar occurrences in other regions should be as frequent as in France. The indication is that there may be quasi-permanent undulations in the Super Sargasso Sea, or a pronounced inclination toward France. Inspiration: that there may be a nearby world, complementary to this world, where autumn occurs at the time that is springtime here. Let some disciple have that. But there may be a dip toward France, so that leaves that are born high there are more likely to be held in suspension than high-flying leaves elsewhere. Some other time I shall take up supergeography and be guilty of charts. I think now that the Super Sargasso Sea is an oblique belt with changing ramifications over Great Britain, France, Italy, and on to India. Relatively to the United States, I am not very clear, but think especially of the southern states. The preponderance of our data indicates frigid regions aloft. Nevertheless, such phenomena as putrefaction have occurred often enough to make supertropical regions also acceptable. We shall have one more datum upon the Super Sargasso Sea. It seems to me that, by this time, our requirements of support and reinforcement and agreement have been quite as rigorous for acceptance as ever for belief, at least for full acceptance. By virtue of mere acceptance we may, in some later book, deny the Super Sargasso Sea, and find that our data relate to some other complementary world instead, or the moon, and have abundant data for accepting that the moon is not more than 20 or 30 miles away. However, the Super Sargasso Sea functions very well as a nucleus around which to gather data that oppose exclusionism. That is our main motive: to oppose exclusionism, or our agreement with cosmic processes. The climax of our general expression upon the Super Sargasso Sea. Coincidentally appears something else that may overthrow it later. Notes and Queries, 8-12-228. That in the province of Macerata, Italy, summer of 1897, an immense number of small, blood-colored clouds covered the sky. About an hour later a storm broke, and myriad seeds fell to the ground. It is said that they were identified as products of a tree found only in Central Africa and the Antilles. If, in terms of conventional reasoning, these seeds had been high in the air, they had been in a cold region. but it is our acceptance that these seeds had, for a considerable